Hello and welcome to Crypto Weeklies. In this video, we are going to analyze XRP, none of the content financial advice. This is the chart for the weekly price of XRP, and the blue line over here is the 200-week simple moving average. Whenever it turns white, that's where the price is lower than the 200-week simple moving average. Green line is the 300-week. When it turns red, it means that the price is lower than 300-week. Since that October-November 2024 rally, there has been a step function increase in the price action. It did cool off quite a bit in that February 2026 drop, but the 200-week simple moving average acted as a support over here. And then back then that 200-week was at around $1.12. Now the price is $1.43, and the 200-week is at $1.15. So what I would imagine in the later half of 2026 is that the price comes and test at least the 200-week simple moving average one more time in 2026, if not go below it like it did back in 2022, in the middle of 2022, and then the price stayed below the 200-week and the 300-week for the remainder of that year and almost half of the next year, till there was a meaningful breakout over here in June 2023. So that could be a potential path for XRP. And again, this is not the first time that has happened. Again, you can see over here although again, one could draw a similarity where from 2018 the price stayed relatively flat and avoided going below the 200-week simple moving average all the way till 2019. But then before the next bull run began, there was at least a year, if not more, year and a half over here where the price stayed below the 200-week simple moving average. So that could be something that could happen in the medium to long term for XRP over the next 6 to 18 months. So that's something potential future for XRP. Just a prediction. If we go by the momentum based or Heikanshi based candles and analyze this bear market with respect to prior bear markets, what we have seen that thus far since that last bullish month in terms of that momentum favoring bullish month was in September 2025. So the 3 months in 2025, October, November and December were red, and now 4 months in 2026, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So total 7 months of continuous bearishness. The last time around there was one counter trend month in March of 2022. That hasn't happened this time around. If we go by this area of potential support that XRP had since 2017, this white line over here, the worst case scenario for XRP towards the end of, let's say, 2027 or even 2026 or even middle of 2027. So this line right now corresponds to a price action. If the price action were to go down and meet this line in April, that corresponds to 46 cents. But as you can see, let's say in July 2027 or something, this line, the price action could be at around 50 to 55 cents. So if there is a drop to that kind of a lower valuation, again, not putting all the bets related to that kind of price action manifesting, but nonetheless just a thought exercise. If the price action were to cool off that much, it would be somewhere of a 60 to 65% drop from the current price, and in total that drop from the previous highs or the market cycle highs would be 86%. If we go by past market cycle and try to analyze what was the drop in the bear market, I know 2021 was not that of a bullish year for XRP, but towards the end of the bear market, the drop was at around 86% from that not that great of a euphoria for XRP due to again, you can see from cycle to cycle, the 2021 was kind of like a missing cycle for XRP where the drop was not higher than the 2017-2018 ceiling. This time around, the price did actually make an all-time high in 2025. So the repercussions for the drop to the downside could be as if not as heavy as 2017, but compared to 2017 drop, after that 2017-2018 rally, drop in towards 2019 and March 2020 was a 95% drop from the previous all-time high. So this time around, if we compare with this past cycle, let's say, and if we try to be more optimistic, the top of the range for this drop is somewhere close to 75 cents. That's the top of range over here, where the price action spent a lot of time consolidating before breaking out. So that's a major area of support for XRP. If let's say something else happens and price action stays elevated for a longer period of time, this is my website cryptoweeklies.com, link on the bottom of your screen. This model over here for XRP, the diminished decay model, it's a regression based model accounting for the fair value, a mathematically derived fair value using regression functions. This is a non-linear estimation using polynomial regression based interpretation of what a fair value of XRP is, trying to attempt to cut the price action into two halves, where the top half is overvalued, bottom half is undervalued in a non-linear way. So this model, the $2.65 is the current fair value of XRP. But what you can see that if you draw a residual which is of a diminished decay based or diminished volatility based residual, so that's why the thickness between, or the separation between the white line and green line over here is higher compared to over here. So if we go by the undervaluation zones, the two major undervaluation zones, the first is the non-panic undervaluation or 1 standard deviation residual drawn from the fair value. That level for XRP is $1.90. So in the short term, if there is a rally in late April, early May, the area to look for is $1.90 per this model. You can see that in the bear market of 2022, this level held as support all the way throughout that bear market, but before that major rally that had happened in November 2024, the price went, and not just went below the green line, but also went below the dark green line over here. Right now the price is currently closer to the lower two band or the darker green line. That is the 95 percentile bear case for XRP, the 2 standard deviation residual. That is the current valuation per the 2 standard deviation residual. The panic scenario for XRP for this time around was at around $1.35. That's still currently close to the current price action. The worst case scenario, the 3 standard deviation bottom for XRP at this point is at around 97 cents. So those are the possibilities. If the price action holds this level as support, then price action could go to the lower one band, which is the $1.85 to $1.86, and this is a growing function. So if let's say the price action stays elevated for a prolonged period of time, these lines will grow with it. So that's the optimistic scenario for XRP. The time weighted average price model takes into consideration of all days traded since 2017 and takes up average price of all of these days to build this white line over here, which is can be understood through the gravity of time approach. What's the gravity of price throughout the time it was traded, rather than looking only the current price. It analyzes where the asset, that is XRP, has spent its entirety of the lifetime. If the accumulation occurs below or at the white line over here, it's essentially beating the clock at entering level where market has historically spent very little time, or that level for XRP is 81 cents. What I would imagine in the later half of 2026, the price either coming close to this level. Again, this is a growing function, so let's say if it extends to 90 cents by the middle of quarter 3 or quarter 4 of 2026, and the price action comes, let's say 30-35% discount on that 90 cents, a 1/3 discount on 90 cents would be 30 cents, and subtracting 30 cents from 90 cents, the bottom for XRP could be close to that 60 cents level. That's one zone of confluence per the time weighted average price model. Per this model, the risk levels are significant. Right now it's at around risk level 6. You can see typically accumulation makes most amount of sense, again not financial advice, when the risk level is lower than 3, or even for as XRP is not the top crypto right now. Bitcoin and ETH together have more than or close enough to the 70% or slightly more than 70% of the market share. Accumulating below risk level 1 or at risk level 1 makes the most amount of sense. Therefore, personally speaking, DCA at this point does not make much amount of sense. at these elevated risk level 6 is typically associated with the early bear market drops. If you look at the prior bear markets over here, risk level 6 was not even the penultimate drop in the bear market in that 2018 bear market, whereas in 2021, as the price became more and more muted for that 2021 bull market that came out much earlier towards the end of year 2021, also in the middle of year 2021 as well. This time around in 2026, potentially it's the penultimate drop if we go by that logic. Risk level 4 or risk level 3 could be the earliest entry point per this model. And again, this is a live model, you can check it out every day. You don't have to wait for the YouTube video or anything. You can you don't need to sign up or anything. You can check out the model on cryptoweeklies.com under the time weighted average price section of XRP. And if this is again sorted by top 20 cryptos by market cap. In that XRP, the first model that we discussed was this diminished decay model. Now we discussed the time weighted average price model. We'll also look at the technical model summary of all of these moving averages, the 200 week, the 100 week and the 20 week moving average combined together have a normalized risk level. If the normalized risk level is less than 10% like it is right now, it's not the worst time to DCA. Again, per this model, whenever the normalized risk is elevated like it was in December 2024 or even in August 2025 at more than 70% risk, that's where again DCA out makes the most amount of sense. So right now the normalized risk is at around 8%. In February drop was at around 4.5% or almost 5% level. So that was again a great time. For context, in May 2022, this risk level was lower than 2% over here. So again, this model also has that potential to identify the bottoms like it did in May 2022, as well as in this July 2024, where the normalized risk was 2.5%. You can come up with your own numbers to justify DCA. The other model that makes some sort of sense with respect to discussion is what could the bear market floor for XRP look like using time series forecasting based interpretation of using the price action and the time series forecast at weekly average price of XRP since 2017. So the time series forecast together with standard deviation based confidence level, looking at the bear market, potential bear market floor for XRP. If let's say there is 6 more months of bearishness in 2026, we don't know how long the bearishness would last, but let's say there are two scenarios, two schools of thought. First is only 3 more months of bearishness. So for example, we don't know when they will come, but going by month, let's say they start in mid-April to mid-May, mid-May to mid-June, and mid-June to mid-July. So if at that level, if the price action has 3 more bearish months to contend with, the floor for XRP is close to 80 cents. But with 6 months of bearishness, the floor kind of shifts to 50-55 cents, that area of confluence that I spoke about earlier. So two scenarios, either the floor is at around 80 cents, if not at around 60 cents. So that's the bear case for XRP. In terms of accumulation at this levels, with the potential bear market bottom at around 80 cents, personally speaking, not much accumulation occurring. The first base bear scenario for XRP is about 44% drawdown from here at around 80 cents. The panic case without a major recession is at around 64 cents. And if there is a major recession in the wider asset classes or not just crypto, the blood case or the worst case scenario in that recessionary environment is almost 71% correction from here at around 41 cents. So with that, I would like to conclude on a hopeful note. If let's say looking at the bullish targets, let's say 2026 does has a decent bear market, 2027 has a decent recovery, and 2028 2029 is usual bullish season, the base peak for XRP in that environment is at around somewhere between $3.20, and the optimistic bull peak is at around $4.75. Stretch goal at around $5. If the bottom for XRP is, let's say, somewhere between 60 and 80 cents, the rally from that eventual bottom to the peak could be somewhere close to between 5x and 6x level. If we go by the bull peak from 80 cents to let's say 80 cents bottom to $4.80 peak, that's a 6x. With that, I'd like to conclude. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please give a like and subscribe, and hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.